Welcome back for episode 3 of the Brandon Golden Show. Today's guest is Chase Burns. We're going to go over what does development look like and what does it look like to be a big leaguer and just his overall mentality of how he's prepared himself to be ready when the moment's called. One cool thing that I thought he mentioned was in the minor leagues, he stayed ready. He hoped to be in AA, AAA in the major leagues, but he didn't put the cart before the horse and he stayed where his feet are. Excited for you guys to hear from Chase Burns. Chase, welcome to the Brandon Golden Show, my man. How you doing?
Good. How are you? Thanks for having me.
I'm good, buddy. Thanks for being on here, dude. Means a lot. What you been up to since the last time we talked?
Enjoying the off season, training, just started throwing. So
Yeah. Well, cool. So for everybody that doesn't know, and if you don't know who this young man is right here across from me, this is Chase Burns, second overall pick, big leaguer with the Reds, one of the most dynamic, explosive athletes that I've had the opportunity to work with. We'll kind of dive into that here in a little bit, but Chase is a stud of a human being before he's an elite pitcher. He's somebody I've been able to develop a really cool relationship with, and it kind of goes back to my time consulting with Wake Forest and him coming on his visit, and then just him being a deke, and then now into pro ball and a big leaguer. So we're going to kind of dive into a lot of those different things. Chase, talk to us about like being born in Italy and what that looked like for you, and then coming to the States.
yeah, I actually get a lot of questions about this. I don't remember anything. I got some cool pictures. Both of my parents were in the Navy. That's how they met. My dad was a cryptologist. He was in there for 10 years, and my mom kind of worked in the mailroom. She's in there for 3, but it's really cool. Just kind of cool opportunity that I was born in Naples, Italy. I got baby pictures in front of the Leaning Tower of Pisa and stuff like that. So I spent like a year over there or something like that. But it's really cool. My sister was actually born in Yokosuka, Japan. So it's just, you know, every time you hear someone born, they're, in the States somewhere and kind of boring. So it's kind of cool to say you're born overseas. My birth certificate's actually in Italian. So, which I think is pretty cool. But
That's sick.
yeah, it's kind of just having that Navy background has kind of helped me a lot in life and kind of is the founding of who I am today and
Yeah, for sure.
why I got into sports and stuff.
Yeah, well, let's jump into that a little bit. So, like, obviously, like, super talented coming out of high school. But what was high school like for you as a player? I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like towards the latter part of your junior senior year, it was kind of like a big uptick in just, I guess, maybe people's opinion about you and where you would end up as a player.
Yeah, when I was younger, of course, I always wanted to, be a professional athlete. I played basketball, played baseball, but I kind of didn't see those big jumps until my sophomore year. I was a really late bloomer. Some of my friends were already committed and stuff like that. But my sophomore year, I kind of started getting into it a lot more. Baseball and basketball started growing kind of into my frame. And that summer year of my sophomore year, I hit 92 and kind of blew up on the scene, started getting some college offers and stuff like that. Committed to Tennessee. And that was like my World Series. Like I thought it was over from there. Like now I'm gonna go to college, blah, blah, blah. Just trying to get that college scholarship and get school paid for. But I just kept working and COVID happening my junior year, it was like the best thing for me. Just being able to play video games and work out all day. And so that's when I saw my big jumps and I was kind of getting to my man strength a little bit. And
Yeah,
next thing you know, I was indoors throwing 100 miles an hour during COVID and, really taking care of my nutrition and my sleep and stuff like that. And then, then the draft talks started coming around my junior year and senior year. I didn't have the best senior year. I think just learning through the process. I quit playing basketball, lost some athleticism and stuff like that, and decided that I wanted to go to college and develop there a little bit and enjoy my college experience a little bit.
yeah, that's a good point. So, like, you were drafted out of high school. How did you know? I guess how did you like to the point that you just made? How did you know that that was the right choice to not go to pro ball then and go to Tennessee?
I mean, honestly, I didn't know until now. I mean, my parents, both went to college and they wanted, that education piece of it. But knowing what I know now, I think I wouldn't have been ready as a 18-year-old to go and play 138 games or whatever it is in the minors and be by myself and play every single day, basically, be on the road. But then again, I think that I just wasn't ready to make that big jump. I thought that, I could have bet on myself, and I knew that, I was looking at probably the third round out of high school, and I really wanted to go, that top three pick, top five pick. So, kind of just bet it on myself and went to work in college.
Yeah, yeah, it worked out just fine. That part of it did most certainly. What do you think? Like, I guess maybe some advice or just some of your experiences, like going from a high school kid that's throwing the mess out of the ball inside, like you just said, to being at Tennessee. To let's kind of talk about your freshman year. Like you pitched pretty well your freshman year. What did that look like for you?
For me, I think I just came in there really hungry. Being a guy that, I could come on campus and people could be like, oh, this guy thinks he's all that, he's going to get drafted, stuff like that. But kind of just keeping my head down and going to work. I had high standards for myself. I didn't want to be a freshman and get redshirted or, only play in the midweek games and stuff like that. I remember kind of writing down some goals, and I wanted to win that freshman of the year, and I wanted to be that Friday night starter. And that's kind of what happened. Then again, I know anybody that's going from high school to college, like just put your head down. It's harder. It's hard as it is just going from high school to college, especially the talent level, but just, getting used to it and going to work really.
Yeah, and that's exactly what you did. I mean, what were the results of your freshman year, both individually and then as a team?
Um, we didn't make it to Omaha, but I mean, we definitely put our stamp in college baseball, being the bad boys at Tennessee. But I did win freshman of the year, won multiple, freshman of the weeks, pitchers of the week, SEC pitcher of the week, stuff like that. But it was just super, super fun to play in that SEC environment. But my freshman, be it for being my freshman year, it was a huge jump and a successful year.
Yeah, for sure. And then having some success your sophomore year as well, and then moving over to Wake Forest. But before we get to Wake Forest, I want to talk a little bit. You kind of mentioned it, like the Navy lifestyle and how
Mhm,
things went. I know your relationship with your dad and how awesome it is, and
mhm.
it's a super special thing. But talk to us a little bit about like one, your relationship with your dad, and then y'all's combined thought process and just overall ability from a development standpoint, like in the weight room. What does that look like for you as a young player, and then even coming up to a big leaguer as well?
Yeah, relationship with my dad. I mean, he's my guy. He's my rock. He's my number one. He's been there. That's a testimony of for me and him. We've kind of been in this thing together. He played Division II football at North Greenville. He was a middle linebacker, so he had some athleticism. I'll give him that. But he wanted me to be a football player first, so I tried that. Didn't work out. I hated getting hit and stuff like that, so that broke his heart. But he was a good athlete. He kind of had that foundation. He was into bodybuilding early, when he was 20, 22 years old. So he always knew about lifting heavy weight and getting faster, getting stronger. So he was kind of my trainer in high school when I really started taking it serious. And I still use him today. He's my guy. He's my chef, my nutritionist. So he helps me out a lot. And he's always I have to give him credit. He's always trying to gain information. He wasn't a baseball player. He didn't know how to throw hard. He didn't know how to move fast, stuff like that. But he did his research. How does someone throw harder? How does someone move better? And he kind of implemented it into what he knew with bodybuilding and just getting bigger, and then also just moving faster with football. So we kind of picked pieces here and there and kind of smashed them all together. And we went through our ups and downs. Something didn't work, something did work, and then kind of figured out what worked best for us. And he took me from 80 miles an hour my starting sophomore year to 101. I still use him in the off season. He comes over and helps me with my gym and stuff like that. So huge shout out to David. He's
Yeah,
my guy. But yeah, he kind of did his research about, moving quicker. But well, the first thing I wanted to do was dunk. I couldn't dunk. I was, 5'10", still trying to grow, but I really wanted to dunk. And, he did his research about how to move faster. I remember deadlifting a lot, like a bunch, just moving that, trying to get those fast twitch fibers just working. And then next thing you know, it kind of went to baseball. I started throwing harder off the mound because I could move quicker. And, we started from there and just kept going.
Yeah, and it's a pretty cool situation too. Like obviously, I've been pretty lucky to work with some really talented players at the collegiate, professional, and major league level, throughout my career. But never have I seen a relationship quite like yours and your dad's, and it's super special, man. Like it's one
Mhm.
that I'm so pumped for you guys that number one that y'all have that closeness with you guys, but it also it's more than that. Like it's him pushing you, it's you pushing him to get better. It's a really cool thing. And yeah, I just wanted everybody to hear how special that is. And I think when you have the ability to do what you've done as an athlete as well, it just makes it even more special. It's unfathomable for a lot of people, and it's hard to put into words. But I just wanted the listeners to be able to understand that you can do things, you can have a relationship. It can be a father son thing. To where there's so many people that tell me, especially with some of the young kids that I work, they're like, "Hey, like he doesn't listen to me. It's time for somebody else to coach him." Well, your dad's still a big part of what you do, man, and I think that's a
Mhm.
really cool thing. And it's something that I wanted to highlight here today because I just find it so intriguing and special. So just wanted to talk about that a little bit. When did you know we were talking about being a football player, talking about dunking? When did you know that, hey, man, I got a real good chance to be a baseball player at the highest level?
Uh, I mean, it was kind of hard to pinpoint it, but like I said, I wasn't growing yet my sophomore year. And basketball, you got to be 6'5", 6'6", to play at the collegiate level. And me and my dad, I remember sitting down and talking, and basketball was my number one love. Like, um, I wish today, if it was a MLB player or NBA player, I'd pick NBA all day. So it was hard to step away from basketball, but I knew like as soon as I was going to get a college scholarship or a college offer in baseball, I was going to step away from basketball, and it happened that sophomore year. And um, like I said, that was my World Series. I thought it was over. I was like, I did it. Now just sit there and wait until I go to college. But then again, David, my dad, he kind of pushed me. I was like, let's keep working. There's more to come and stuff like that. And once the agents started reaching out, during COVID, and I hit 95 for the first time, and me and my pitching coach at the time would kind of send it out to people. And then the velo just kept ticking up. And then next, thing more and more agents started reaching out. And that's when we kind of knew like, okay, scouts were coming to watch me work out and watch me throw bullpens. And, then reality kind of hit us. I was like, maybe we have a shot to play professional. So,
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt, man. And that's a cool, like, that's kind of a roundabout way to get us back towards like Wake Forest. Like, again, I remember sitting in the room when you were there on your visit and, talking
mhm.
about different things. And, I was over there consulting with those guys. And one thing that I remember very specifically is I remember like sitting there as Moose was going over his spiel and just pulling up your Instagram. I'm like, hey, man, like you're kind of floating down the mound. There's a couple things that, we can go downstairs in the lab and work on and allow you to throw 100, 101, 102 for a long time and have a place to develop throughout professional baseball. Like, what about Wake Forest? What about, I guess, maybe your visit and just Wake in general and that staff that made you feel comfortable enough to pull the trigger and finish your last year of college baseball there?
Yeah. It was a lot of things. Me and my dad felt really comfortable going there, and seeing so many people just be real with me. Not about the NIL or the playing time and stuff like that. It was just like, hey, you have the potential to get so much better, and you don't even know it. And that's how my dad is. He's very real with me. He doesn't sugarcoat anything. So just going to Wake and seeing Moose and going through how much better I could get, that puts a fire under you, and kind of um, you can just see the possibilities and the outcomes and stuff like that. I remember um, after that talk and everything, and me and my dad just looking at each other like laughing. It's just like, dude, we're going. Like, I'm coming here, and I was like, if I don't get any better, it's my fault. Like, you can put the pieces out in front of someone. I love telling my boys and that are in baseball and stuff like that. Like you could lead the horse to water, you can't make them drink it.
Yeah.
Like, and Wake was showing me the way. You know, it was leading me to the water, and I drank it. So it was just really cool. Just seeing the technology piece and the movement. You know, I never thought myself as a great mover. I just knew how to grip it and rip it, kind of. And
Mhm.
just seeing how Wake made me into the pitcher I am, and seeing that I can just keep getting better and better. It kind of just motivated me, and I knew it was the right spot for me.
Yeah, man. It was a cool thing, and I'm glad you went there, and we've been able to develop the relationship we have, and me still be able to work with you to this day, man. It's pretty special stuff. A couple things before we move on to the professional side. What was it like playing in the postseason in college throughout multiple years of college baseball?
Yeah, there's nothing better. You know, my freshman year losing to Notre Dame, trying to get to Omaha, you know, that hurt. That was hard seeing all the guys that put, you know, time and effort and they were going to the draft. I didn't realize at the time how big it was going to Omaha. And then my sophomore year, not having as good as of a team, but you know, we got there in the grittiest way. And you know, playing in that atmosphere of um Charles Schwab, that field is just amazing. Like, you know, every time you play there, it's like 35, 40,000 fans, and
Hmm.
going there, it's like Disney World for baseball. But then, you know, junior year losing to the first round to your boys at ECU, that was hard. Going against you Savage though was really cool. You know, seeing what he's doing in the postseason now. So that's really crazy. You know, you never realize in the moment how good these players are and that you're going to see them down the line. So just like um, college baseball in a whole, and that playoff atmosphere was just it's just incredible.
Yeah, man. It was that's a pretty cool environment down in Greenville. What was it like, I guess, being in Greenville for that regional, and how did you take some of those lessons maybe you learned there into pro ball? Because obviously that was kind of the end of college baseball.
Yeah, just not getting too ahead of yourself. I felt like you know, that game, I thought I was going to punch out, you know, 15, 16, what I've been doing all year. And, you know, I faced some adversity, which is good for anybody, but being at that atmosphere was insane. You know, we had people hanging off the field and right field yelling and stuff like that. So it was just really cool. But, um, you know, it kind of made it seem like when I got into the bigs and seeing fans yell at me, I was like, I've been here before. So it was really cool to see that though.
Yeah, man, no doubt. Thanks for tuning into the Brandon Golden Show. Just wanted to talk briefly about Clean Fuego and our sponsor. So, if you're looking for better spin efficiency and really to be able to throw the ball without cutting it and have true spin, check out Clean Fuego at cleanfuego.com. Thanks for tuning in to the Brandon Golden Show. No doubt. One thing I want to talk about, like you understand the game at a super high level. So I want to kind of get a breakdown of what does your arsenal look like. Tell us what your pitch mixes are and kind of how you've developed those.
Yeah. You know, fastball, kind of always been a hard thrower throughout college. Just trying to be able to, you know, throw it at the top of the zone. I have a higher slot. I backspin it pretty well. I have pretty high spin on it. You know, sometimes with an occasional cut. So it's like a cut ride. But you know, just throwing that at the top of the zone, that's the biggest thing that I've learned from being in professional baseball. Just not throwing it low in the zone, or using effective velocity. You know, if I can throw it up and in, not as hard, but pinpoint it, then it does the job, you know, just as good. I got the slider that, you know, it's like a gyro slider. It kind of just goes straight down. You know, it's got some pretty high spin on it. Try to throw it as hard as I can. Try to, you know, throw that down and into lefties, down and away to righties. I've got my curveball, which I didn't really use as much in the bigs, but definitely using that a lot next year. Just the speed difference, and having something that matches my playing with my higher slot, and then the kick change, which I started getting more comfortable with. It's kind of hard, but just using something that goes away to lefties, and kind of the difference with speed and you know, just seeing batters, making sure that batters can see that pitch, you know.
Yeah, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. What would you say, I guess, is maybe something like from just the sheer I guess, like personality standpoint, everybody sees the emotion on the mound and
Mhm.
just the way you go about things. Like, how did you go about developing that? Because obviously, like, with you and I here in the lab or wherever else, like you're always a competitive dude, but like you take it to another level on the mound. Like, where did that come from?
Uh, that probably came from my dad. His football mentality. You're going out there and he always tells me you're going to compete in everything you do in life, whether it's video games, sports, girls, stuff like that. You're always competing. So just taking that mindset and bringing it out to the mound. There's days where I don't really feel like pitching or I don't feel the best out there and stuff like that. But being able to lock into that mindset and get through it and fight and compete, that's just you got to have that, especially at this level. It's just like then again, you're competing for a job, you're competing for a paycheck. So I think everybody likes getting paid. So that's what I'm competing for. So yeah, I'm not always like that. I think there's a side that, I'm pretty chill. I like playing video games. I'm a pretty relaxed guy, but you have to have that mindset where you can get pumped up and get ready for war, basically.
Yeah, no doubt, man. And it's been fun to watch you do, like to have the ebb and flows of both of those. Like there'll be times where we're talking on the phone and it's just like this. We're just chilling, and
Mhm.
then there's times where we're training and we're doing stuff, and it's like you can see the difference in the intensity, man. And it pushes me too. So it's a lot of fun.
Oh yeah.
It's I it's yes, it's the best. It's awesome. Let's talk a little bit about like being drafted. So you kind of talked
Mhm.
about like coming out of high school, wanted to be in a specific spot, weren't quite there. Coming out of college, the second overall pick. What was that like, and how fast did that go? I guess moving from college baseball when they called your name to
Mhm.
showing up in Arizona.
Uh, Very fast. Faster than I thought. Right after the season was over, I got some downtime and stuff like that, but it started picking up very quickly. With these teams having to make a business decision and having a lot of calls and meetings and stuff like that. But it was really fun just to show teams, who I am on and off the field. Because then again, they're not drafting just a baseball player; they're drafting a human being. You got a lot of responsibility, so you got to make sure that person is, good on and off the field. So, but yeah, Reds drafted me. Couldn't have been more excited, to have my family there and was pumped. Got to see my boys get drafted, Kurtz and Seaver. Um, but yeah, then it was like a couple weeks later, it was like, all right, you're coming to Arizona. You're gonna get, your feet wet with what, professional baseball looks like and seeing rookie ball and being around, all the Latins and stuff like that and seeing how they work. It was really cool. I was shut down personally. Some of the guys weren't. They got to throw. I got to watch them. It was really cool though. And then, but I kinda had that same mindset when I was going from high school to college, like, I had high expectations for myself, and then, after seeing what pro ball looks like and rookie ball and stuff like that, I know I wanted to move up quick and get to the big leagues.
Yeah, for sure. Walk us through what it looked like for you, I guess, as a minor league player, like
Mhm.
from everything, from showing up to the field, from strength and conditioning, from the nutrition side of things, from talking with coaches, coordinators. Like, how did that go for you, and what was, I guess, your thought process on a daily basis, knowing that you're going in there trying to compete to earn a job in the big leagues every day?
Yeah, it's kinda different at every level. Um, I would say, with the strength and conditioning, they were more hands-on at the lower levels. When we were in rookie ball, when we first got drafted, there was very hands-on, even in high A when I got sent out to Dayton, very hands-on, it was kinda like college all over again, really, but as you started to move up to double A, triple A, it kinda had some more freedom to do what you needed to do, and especially in the big leagues, they know what they know that you've gotten yourself there, and they kinda let you go to work, but, yeah, basically, you get to the field, you throw, you do arm care. Arm care is huge, especially in our organization. Take care of your body and stuff like that. You have a lot of downtime. I play cards, stuff like that.
Yeah,
You're at the field every day. It's especially in the minor leagues, you're playing from, Tuesday, Sunday, and have that Monday day off. But it's really fun. That's when you really are, where you can really feel where it's a job. I mean, you're there from 12 to 10 basically every day, and you're kind of just grinding it out. But that's what makes it fun. You're learning along the way. You're you're getting better, you're getting stronger, and you're just kind of learning as a person and as a baseball player.
Yeah, man. Then you make your debut. Talk to us a little bit about when you got the call. You knew you achieved your dream of being a big leaguer. What that experience was like.
Yeah, it was crazy. I had only been in AAA for 2 weeks. First outing, first time using a big league ball and since spring training. We were in Iowa. I had to drive like 8 hours to get there. It was crazy. And then the next outing, I actually went against the Yankees AAA. Did pretty good. But then again, my mindset kind of going through the minor leagues was, I want to move quick, but I don't want to think that I'm only going to be here for a couple weeks. So I kind of had a split mindset. Like I wanted to move up. I was hungry, but don't get too ahead of yourself. But yeah, I
How did
had
let's touch on that
uh
real quick, Chase. How did you
yeah,
go about that? Because I think that's something that every person listening in whatever their field is can relate to. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Like whether they're an athlete or whether they're a CEO of a company, whatever the case may be, is like you want to be the best version of yourself day in and day out, and you want to have aspirations and push forward, but you don't want to be ahead of yourself and think you're not good enough to do what the task is at hand. How did you go about that, man?
Yeah, I mean, it was hard. I went to high A. I was kind of frustrated that I was even in high A. I felt like I'd shown them a lot during spring training, but I kind of just used that as fuel. But especially being the second overall pick, everybody was like, "Oh, you're not going to be here long. You're not going to, you're going to be gone in a couple of weeks." But I didn't have that mentality. I was like, I'll be here for as long as they need me to be here, but I'm going to show them that I shouldn't be here. Um,
Yeah,
if that makes sense. So, I was in high A, kind of pissed off that I was even there. Wanting to start in double A. Double A, they always talk about double A is the best baseball. And that's where I wanted to be. But yeah, being in high A, and then also you just never know what happens, especially being in baseball. It's a business, but also if you never know if someone will get hurt or a spot opens up and stuff like that. And I kind of just kept my head down and went to work. Didn't really do that good in high A, to be honest, but someone had gotten injured in double A, and I was the next man up. Moved up, went to double A, and then had that same mindset. Like I want to get to triple A. I want to have those high standards for myself, but I'm also not going to think, when someone tells me, "Oh, you're not going to be here long," that I'm going to be like, "Oh yeah," I'm going to be like, "I'm going to be here for as long as they need me to be here." I was there for I think like 11 starts, had like a 1.2 ERA, which was dealing in double A, and then got to triple A and had that same mindset. Had those two outings, and I was thinking, okay, I'm gonna be here for a little bit. Next, thing you know, they called me. Well, I was leaving the locker room and I had shorts on and like a t-shirt, and um, PK, our manager, had called me in, and I knew like, yeah, I probably shouldn't have been wearing this. I should have wore something a little bit better, but I
yeah,
had that in the back of my mind. And it's funny because he didn't even know that, but he was like, "What are you wearing, man?" And my heart just dropped, and I was like, "Oh
like
man," I was like, "I messed up." I was like, "I should have wore pants, I'm sorry, blah blah blah." And he was like, "Yeah," he's like, "They're not going to let you wear this when you're going against the Yankees Tuesday." And I thought, I was like, he's making a joke or something. And I was like, "Huh?" And then he said it again. He's like, "Yeah, man." He's like, "You got to wear something nice when you're having your debut." And I mean, it's just like all the emotions you could think of just hit me. All the coaches are in there looking at me, and I'm just so excited. I'm hugging everybody, and the first people I call is my dad. He actually doesn't answer for like 5 calls. I'm like, "Geez, dude." And so I'm on the field. I'm talking to him, and I'm asking them like, "Hey, what are you guys doing Tuesday?" And they're like, it was funny because I was actually supposed to pitch in Louisville Tuesday, and they're like, "We're coming to see you pitch," and I was like, "Well, I'm not pitching." And the first thing that my dad thought of is like, "Are you injured?" He's like, "What's wrong?" And I was like, "I'm just not pitching in Louisville." And he's like, "Where are you pitching?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm pitching in Cincinnati against the Yankees." And I mean, it was just like the coolest thing
yeah.
ever. Just so many emotions. My mom's screaming in the background, called my
Oh
sister,
yeah.
all of that. And so, um, but I was just like so many emotions. But then again, having that mindset, I was like, this might be just a spot start. I'm gonna go out there. I'm gonna show them, what I got. Maybe I'll be back in AAA. Maybe I'll stay in the bigs. I don't know.
Right.
Um, but I got nothing to lose, and this is what I've been waiting for. So, and then it happened at Yankee Stadium. struck out the first 6 guys, and I couldn't even tell you. I mean, I was just trying not to throw up on the mound, basically.
Yeah.
But just seeing all the fans and Cincinnati fans were great, and the support, and then seeing my family on the field after the game, um, and then they were like, "Hey, next week we're going to Boston," and then that's when I kind of knew like I was going to be here for a while and stuff like that. So
Yeah, man, that's super cool. And what you did, striking, I believe it was consecutive six
mhm.
Ks is in a debut. I don't believe there's been more than 5 strikeouts in a debut since 1961 when I was doing some research earlier. So like, that's a pretty cool thing, man. And I remember watching it. I was pumped and texting Moose back and forth. Like, it was unbelievable. Like, what talk to us a little bit about like the game plan, because those going up against the Yankees, I mean, those some of the best hitters in baseball. Like, what was the game plan like for you with the staff in the big leagues, and how was that different, if it was, from maybe some of the starts in the minor leagues?
Yeah, so they were kind of using my minor league starts to get ready for the bigs, and how you know the characteristic of my pitches worked. Every 0-2 we were setting up a high fastball in Double A, like every single time, and that's what they were kind of getting me ready for in the bigs, and that was the game plan. Keep the fastball at the top. Let the slider do its thing, and then throw the changeup when needed. They call it like the triangle method. Fastball top, slider, and then changeup. So, I'm not really a guy that kind of goes in and out. I think that's something that I can improve on, definitely. But yeah, just kind of using my strengths and going out there and seeing what they did with that.
Yeah, yeah, that's pretty cool, man. We talked a little bit about the postseason in college baseball. What was pitching in the postseason like in the big leagues?
It's that times 10. You're just to face the Dodgers in my first postseason and having to go to LA, and I was in the bullpen at the time, but it was just it was insane seeing those guys. I mean, they're the best of the best. We lost to them, of course, but they ended up winning the whole thing. So we hadn't made the playoffs, and I don't know when it was, but for my first year, being able to experience that and having that opportunity was truly amazing. So, and then, I think I got an inning in 2/3, but not many rookies can say that they got an innings worked in the postseason. So it was amazing. I can't wait. It just puts that fire back under me to make it and go even further. So.
No doubt, man. No doubt. Pretty sure that was scoreless too, if I remember correctly. But what are we trying to work on? What are your goals, man? Like, what are you trying to do this off season? How are you going to make sure that? And that, well, I shouldn't say. I was getting ready to say, how are you going to make sure you're motivated to show up to spring training? I know you better than that.
Yeah.
How are you? What do you want to work on moving into spring training of 2026?
Yeah. The biggest thing is staying healthy. With 162 games of high effort, high leverage always, and then in that smaller time frame, throwing every 5 days. That's the biggest thing for me. This past year, I had something with my forearm, just getting used to throwing intensely, every 5 days. Thank God it was only, kind of just some inflammation, but that's the biggest thing. What can I do to have as many starts in the big leagues as I can? Secondly is just how can I improve my pitches even more? How did they match up last year? What things I need to work on. I think the biggest thing is getting lefties out. I think I'm a strikeout type of pitcher, power pitcher. So the righties were, I did a better job at getting righties out than I did lefties. So I know the biggest thing for me is having that cut ride fastball, maybe implementing a cutter this year, but also mixing in the changeup a lot more than the curveball. So
Yeah,
um, being able to get those lefties out, because mainly the in those lineups nowadays, you're facing 9 lefties. So that's a huge thing for me this year.
that's awesome, man. What about on the performance side? What are some things you're going to work towards this offseason?
What do you mean by that?
Just like more like the strength and conditioning side. Is there going to be anything that's similar, different to kind of your off seasons in the past, or what are you most excited about? I mean, you mentioned like the gym there at the house. Like, what are some things there that I guess you're hopefully going to move the needle for you?
Yeah, just staying athletic is the biggest thing. I think a lot of baseball players can get caught up in getting too mechanical, and you know, especially pitchers just thinking like a pitcher. But I want to be an athlete on the mound. I want to be able to move the best I can move. So that's the biggest thing for me. Flexibility is huge. If you could stay flexible, you could stay on that field for a long time. So, and then also, I got some personal things, just getting, you know, adding some weight on, adding some muscle, stuff like that. But biggest thing is flexibility and staying athletic.
Sweet. Yeah, you do those two things. You let that twitch and power shine, man. That's
Yeah.
kind of who you are right there. That's awesome, dude. I'm going to throw a couple questions at you real quick, kind of like a
Mhm.
impromptu little lightning round here.
Okay.
Who was somebody when you made it to the big leagues that made a huge impact on you that maybe you wouldn't have thought would have?
Um, Jose Trevino. Um, you know, you never know what to expect being a younger guy coming into the bigs, and everybody's different. Maybe some people don't like to put rookies under their wing and stuff like that. Him coming from the Yankees, being an all-star at the Yankees, you just don't expect some people to, take time out of their day to help you and stuff like that. But he's been the best to me, helping me with everything. And he is truly one of the smartest guys I've ever met behind that plate. So just be able to learn from and I'm going to be throwing to him. So being able to build that relationship, he's awesome.
Yeah, that's really cool. What's the coolest moment being in the big league so far?
Oh man. Ah, there's so many. I mean, you can go from just driving up to the plane and taking off. Like, not everyone does that. That's insane. Getting fed steak on a plane. And also just seeing some of these atmospheres. I think one of the coolest spots that I've been to was the Mets. I mean, that place was just packed out. And then also having to go to LA to play, the playoff games. I mean, I've had some really cool experiences so far.
Yeah, man. What's one lesson about life or baseball that you want people to know about you and your story?
Ooh, I feel like you truly never know. You truly never know. I was never the biggest kid growing up. I was never the fastest or threw the hardest and stuff like that. And you truly don't know what God can do in your life, the opportunities that He can do, and the doors that He can open. And I think that if anybody really wants to achieve their dreams, that they can put their head down and put all that hard work and effort into it, and God can do some amazing things.
That's beautiful, man. That's awesome. What's one last question? What's
Mhm.
some advice that you would give to a young high school kid and then maybe a college player that wants to end up like the next Chase Burns?
The biggest thing is it's your career. It's not your friends, it's not your teammates, it's not your brothers, it's not your dad's, it's not your coach's career. At the end of the day, it's your career, and I think you have to do what's best for it. I know that could look in different many ways, not throwing when you're younger because your arm's sore and you pitched 2 days ago, or making that big step and transferring to a different school because you think you're going to get better. um, I always would want to look back when I'm older and say, did I do everything that I could do to have a successful career, or did I put in all the puzzles to get where I'm at, and did I put in 100%? So I think that if you've got to go and do something by yourself, or put in that extra time and effort, that it's your career, and if you want to do it, go ahead and do it.
That's outstanding, man. Well, Chase, thanks for coming on the Brandon Golden Show, man. Super excited to have you on here. Can't wait to see you soon, buddy. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Thank you.